During the last half of the 19th century, there was a thriving Chinese fishing village in Pacific Grove at Point Alonis, near where Hopkins Marine Station now stands. On May 17, 1906, the village burned to the ground. The cause of the fire was never determined, and the fishermen and their families moved to other parts of the Monterey Peninsula. On September 20, 2014, a descriptive panel was placed on Ocean Boulevard near the site of the village. The ceremony was led by members of the Chinese American community and the Heritage Society of Pacific Grove, opened by the Monterey Bay Lion Dance Team.
Everyone, give a hand to the Monterey Bay Lion Dance Team. Thank you so much. Once again, I'd like to thank the Monterey Bay Lion Dance Team for a beautiful way to start off this special occasion tonight. Today. It just is a little bit dark out. But luckily not wet. Well, hi everyone. My name is Dave Van Sunder, and I'm the president of the Heritage Society of Pacific Grove. And I'm so happy to see so many people turn out here today for this event. This is an important piece of Pacific Grove heritage that we're here to honor today that often gets overlooked, and I'm hoping it doesn't get overlooked any longer. The Chinese village that we are rightfully honoring with this plaque today predated the city of Pacific Grove by decades and was one of the most significant Chinese settlements here in California. The Chinese that settled here also pioneered commercial fishing in the Monterey Bay, which is also often forgotten. Before I introduce a few guests that want to say a few words on a special occasion, I just want to say a quick thank you to a few people who helped us with the logistics here today that were necessary to make this event itself here possible. So I want to extend our thanks to the City of Pacific Grove's Public Works Department, including Daniel Go, Rocky Pinheiro, John Goss, and others for helping us to get set up here today, as well as for preparing the site for the plaque, including moving the boulder that we have here that the plaque is mounted on. And I want to thank the Monterey Bay Aquarium for loaning us this sound system so that you can actually hear what I'm saying here today. And I also want to thank Steve Webster for helping us get this all set up. Now, the idea for this plaque and the research, coordination, and funding were a joint effort. No one person could do it alone, although Jerry would do a noble effort to make that happen. It would be impossible for me to thank everyone today that was involved, but I'll do my best to grab a few people at least. First, I want to thank the Heritage Society members that helped with this project, especially Scott Hall, who helped to get the site designed, and Janet Cohen for just bringing everyone together, so we could get this event here done, because this is something that's been long in the planning stages, and she was able to finally shepherd it to completion, and that's very important. And of course, I need to thank the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History for partnering with us on this project, especially Dr. Annie Holdren, the exhibition's curator, for writing the panel text, capturing in a very limited space significant aspects of the lives of the people that lived here. And thank you to the City of Pacific Grove, including the city manager, Tom Frucci, and Bill Campy for partnering this project, providing the site and the boulder, and for sharing the costs along with the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History and the Heritage Society. I also want to thank historian and author Sandy Leiden, whose expertise was lent as the foremost authority on the history of the Pacific Grove Chinese Fishing Village. Thank you to Jeff Norman of Shared Ground in Oakland for patiently working with us to design a beautiful educational panel. And thank you to Michael Miller for generously giving us time to carve the boulder and install the panel. And of course, a very special thank you to Jerry Lo Sabato, whose help and expertise as a descendant of the Pacific Grove Chinese Fishing Village were instrumental throughout every aspect of the project. Now, I don't want to stay up here too long because we have an interpretive panel to unveil, but before we do that, I have a few people I'm happy to introduce. First, I'd like to bring up Lori Manell, the director of the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History. Thank you, Lori, for all your help with the project.
Thank you, David. Well, hello. It's kind of an emotional moment for me. I'm a little surprised by myself. Usually Jerry's the one crying up here. I remember, though, the first time kind of walking along this wreck trail and seeing an archaeological dig that Director Steve Columbi had approved with the Stanford Hopkins Marine Station. And I checked it out, and this is way before I was even involved in the museum. And I heard they were doing a dig because there was a Chinese fishing village that was here. And they said, yeah, look at this pottery we found. We found this little shard. And I thought, that was so interesting. And I kind of looked around, and I didn't actually find any information about the Chinese fishing village. I had never heard about it. I couldn't see anything about it, just kind of readily available in the community. And then I joined as the director of the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History in 2008. And in my first week on the job, Jerry comes visits me. I have a story to tell you. And it's an important story. And it's one that's not very well understood. And it's essential not just to the history of Pacific Grove or even the history of Monterey County. This is a national story. This is one of two places that was the first place that Chinese families immigrated to in America, as opposed to just male day laborers. And standing here today and seeing the community support this effort and having such a wonderful partnership in this project with the City of Pacific Grove and with the Heritage Society of Pacific Grove, it is so gratifying to see the repatriation of the memories and the celebration of this community at this location. We also do now certainly tell the story at the museum. And another community member actually saw that story and was inspired, and he made a whole model, recreated the village. That's all at the museum. But this moment is a special moment, being at this location. I really want to just say my personal thank you to our museum curator, Dr. Annie Holdren, for her involvement in this project. Really excellent work. And the interpretive text is strong. And I really appreciate the feature photograph from the museum's collection, from the city's museum collection, helping tell that story. I just really am excited to be in this moment, and thank you, Jerry, for bringing us here.
Thank you.
So with that said, I'll bring it back to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Next, I want to introduce Mayor Bill Camp as the mayor of Pacific Grove. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. I'd like to welcome everyone here on behalf of the City of Pacific Grove. It's great to see such a gathering on this occasion. David and Lori have hinted at the history and the significance of this village. It's truly remarkable. For me, the hard work and the resourcefulness of this community really launched, and as was mentioned, commercial fishing around this bay. And that has really been the heart of what's created the Monterey Bay environment, our peninsula. It's something that many of us know parts of in this town. I think this occasion, and through the persistence of Jerry Lo Sabado, will now be able to share this with all visitors who pass this point from around the world. I think it's appropriate and fitting, and I hope it prompts us all to learn more about this remarkable community and the continuing effect it has on life on the Monterey Peninsula. With that, I'll turn it back to Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, I'd like to introduce Congressman Sam Farr. Congressman Sam Farr is a fifth-generation Californian who represents this state's beautiful Central Coast. Through his 20-year tenure, he has been a leading advocate for California agriculture, outspoken activist for affordable housing, and a champion of the oceans. I'd like to thank you, Congressman, for joining us here today.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much, David, and I want to thank all of you for coming out today. I feel this is a long overdue. I grew up here on the Monterey Peninsula and heard the stories about the Chinese fishing village that was here and how it was burned down. I learned from my parents the Exclusionary Act that the government had enacted to exclude Chinese from having American citizenship, from marrying in this country, from owning land. It was an awful part of our history. And here in the Monterey Peninsula, which celebrates so much of the way California began. In fact, I think that the more we reflect on the history of the West, we will see that it all leads to this peninsula. That everything in this great multicultural democracy state of 36 million people that we live in, nation state, in fact, comes down to what happened here and started in Monterey, including the incredible presence and history of connections with the Chinese that were here. So I think it's long overdue that we didn't, one, apologize to the Chinese community for that fire, that we didn't celebrate the incredible cultural richness that they've brought this Monterey Peninsula and the state, and as Lori said, the nation. And so today is like a wonderful restart of let's put them in our history book. It's not just the Spanish and the Mexicans and the Anglos that came here and others, but the Chinese are as much as a factor in making this a great fishing village as they started the fishing. And when driven off the ocean in the daytime, they started fishing at night. You know, everybody in the world's now eating, they never ate squid, but they all love calamari. But the Chinese started that industry. It wasn't the Italians. And that started right here in Monterey. This was the largest this is the largest cultural center of Chinese in the entire region for almost half a century until the fire burned it down. So to bring to the public in this pathway, which by the way, more people walk this pathway than go to the #1 attraction in the entire, one of the top 10 attractions in the entire state of California, which is the Monterey Bay Aquarium. More people pass along this trail than go to the aquarium. So if we have a monument, a historical significance, and I hope we can build on it. Wouldn't it be nice to take the other side of the street and maybe have some relationships to that village as well? And maybe there's opportunity here. And I just want to tell my constituents that I was, you know, my mother telling me these stories and my father I was always embarrassed that we didn't do something about it. So last week I had the wonderful thrill of being invited. I'm ranking member on the Agricultural Appropriations Committee, and the Secretary of Agriculture is a fellow named Tom Vilsack, former governor of Iowa, a fellow who grew up in an orphanage, who became mayor of a town and then governor of the state, now Secretary of Agriculture. And we have a huge arboretum in Washington. It's essentially run by the Department of Agriculture as a agricultural research station. But it is a huge arboretum of collection of plants from all over the world. And for the first time in about 50 years, we're going to put a big addition to it, all funded with private money, no federal money, but they've asked the federal partners, at least who own the land, to come in, and it's the Chinese garden. And we came for the groundbreaking of that effort. And what I learned in the tour of this garden, which has specimens from all over the United States, all over the world, that the motherland of gardens was China. And there isn't a plant here on the Monterey Peninsula in our back gardens, almost, that doesn't have an origin in China. All are these plants and things that we think about and don't even think about how they got here to this country and much less to the peninsula. So I find that having done that last week, and I'm one of the honorary co-chairs of the effort to get that project built. It will take a number of years and multi-millions of dollars to do it, but we're going to raise the money because the communities all over the country are going to help. But I think that more importantly for us locally, I hope that everybody will go out and purchase again and reread Chinese Gold. What a fortune we had in Sandy Leiden committing that research. Now there's not an ethnic group in the United States that isn't seeking him out to write their history of how they came to the United States. You reading that book, you realize not only the fishing connections was right here in this spot, but the agricultural harvesting of agriculture and actually saving agriculture. When there was a big bust in the Salinas Valley, when all the sugar beets just crashed and there was nothing to sell and market for, people wouldn't make any money, and because of the Chinese laborers who had home gardens that sort of were tenant farmers, had collectively preserved all the mustard seed, and that became the commodity that saved the Salinas Valley agriculture. So we have so much to be thankful for and reminded of, the great history, and I can't think of I think the next decade, perhaps the next century, as we look at the geopolitics of the world, the trade of the world, isn't going to be the Middle East. It's going to be China. And when Chinese, who are now reading Sandy Leiden's book and have been able to find out that there are spots in the United States that they had no idea that they have Chinese history and ancestors there, they're going to come here and they want to see these places. So we're going to have a huge increase of Chinese visitors. They may be maybe outpacing the European visitors. So I think it's really wonderful that we have the ability today to recognize their incredible important history to this area and to our country, to our state, and what a rich culture they have given us to be able to live in one of the most beautiful areas of the world. And when you think about it, it's also preserved in other cultures, as the Defense Language Institute has developed in creating host country linguists to come in and teach these languages. We now have 23 different languages being taught there. And each of those faculties, generations old, have brought in their, so we are, you know, the Monterey Peninsula, I think, is so lucky that we have such a multicultural diversity. It's what makes this place such an exciting place to live and learn, and we're still learning. I want to thank the all the people that put this together, the Pacific Grove Heritage Society, the City of Pacific Grove. You know, we're all talking about this is history of Pacific Grove, but this is really history of a lot more than just Pacific Grove. But thank you, Pacific Grove, for taking the lead. And for the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, and to Jerry Lo Sabado for all the work they've done in bringing this moment to us. We can be proud as Peninsula residents that we have now contributed and recognized and honoring and thanking all those Chinese ancestors that came here and helped build the great state of California. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for that wonderful tribute. Next, I'd like to bring up Assembly Member Mark Stone.
Thank you, David. It's always so great to hear Sam speak. I don't think there's anyone who has the depth of knowledge of our entire region as Sam does, and always learn something, which is great. And Sam, you're right. The modern history of California begins here, and our cultural richness begins here. And this is a very important moment, even though it's a small memorial. If anybody passing this, and all of us who live in our communities here, will stop and pause and read and start to understand, and then ask a question and want to go to the museum and learn more about the Chinese communities here. I have the great pleasure of representing the entire Monterey Bay in the California State Assembly. That includes Pacific Grove and the Monterey Peninsula all the way around to Santa Cruz. And of course, Santa Cruz, if you read Sandy Leiden's work, also had a very significant Chinese population there. And for us, we owe our future and our past to the immigrants who came to California and farmed here and fished here. And there are two significant reasons in front of us today to remember our cultural history, because we in California owe our current culture to the people who came here, took the risk, raised their families, and worked here in California. But we also need to remember the mistakes that were made, how those communities were treated. So we have no communities like that ever treated that way again. So history teaches us how to act in the future, but also teaches us about ourselves. And I'm very pleased to come here today, and I'm glad there's a great group of people to mark this event and ask questions about what our history was, and honor those who came here to our wonderful state and our wonderful Monterey Bay. Thank you all very much.
Okay, now I would like to introduce Jerry Lo Sabado. Jerry is a fifth-generation Chinese American who grew up unaware of her family's Chinese fishing village history, like many of us, on the Monterey Peninsula here. After learning about that history and that her great-grandmother, Kwok is the first documented Chinese woman born in the Monterey area, she began a journey to research and tirelessly tell her story and their story. Over the years, she has been interviewed by historians, reporters, and students of all ages about her family and the history of the village. Her work has helped educate people about the relationships between the Chinese village and the nearby towns, and about the lives of the Chinese people who once lived and thrived in those communities, and the descendants that still call them and the surrounding areas home. Jerry has helped to bring a change in attitude regarding local Chinese American history through her affiliation with many organizations throughout both the Monterey County and the San Francisco Bay Area. Her goal is to inspire people and bring awareness, understanding, change, and friendship to the many communities she's involved with. So thank you, Jerry, for being here to continue that effort today. I'll turn it over to you now.
I'm so thrilled to see so many people come here, and I recognize so many faces in different aspects of my life that have listened to me talk about this story over and over and over again. And I really appreciate your support and your words of encouragement when I was afraid to talk, when I was tired, when I didn't think things would gel. So many of you came together and gave me that encouragement to keep moving on. And what I feel is so important about this is that this panel in Boulder is the result of many people. And I feel that it shows us when we work together, when we listen to each other and we understand what each other is trying to say, that we can work together and have a great event like this and bring about information that has been quiet for over 100 years, 150 years. It just seems, even for my generation, we almost lost our legacy. I grew up here. I was born and raised here in Monterey in 1949, and we knew nothing about this generation. To us, the ancestors didn't even exist. We didn't know. We only knew our parents and our grandparents, who just lived down the road and worked in Cannery Row. But I think that the realization now of the Heritage Society and the Museum of Natural History and the City of Pacific Grove has really helped me to tell that story. And I thank all of you, especially Janet Cohen, who without her push to bring this about, I don't think it would have happened. And also in the very beginning, when I just was starting out, Sue Paris from the National Coalition Building Institute came to help me to come forward and speak. I was a little more shy about it, and I needed a little push, and I needed someone to sit there kind of to hold my hand and help me tell the story, because I really didn't know the story, because I grew up with the Beach Boys, the Beatles, peace and love. I didn't know anything about Chinese history. And I grew up not really liking history. So I find it very ironic that I now am one of the people telling the history. It's too ironic for me. And for today, just a little while ago, I was so emotional because I just am in awe that this event has come to pass. And just last night, I was, when we were installing the panel, a couple was walking along the path, and I started talking to them about the event and saying, giving them a flyer, why don't you come? And they were from China visiting here, and they said they're going to come. So I'm not sure if they're here. And then just this morning, coming across the street, another couple was coming across, and I said, oh, at 10 o'clock we're going to have an event. And the fellow said that he studied Asian studies in San Francisco. He's going to come. So I'm pulling them right off the street to come to our event in Pacific Grove. But I also want to thank Lori, Annie, Jeff. His design is so beautiful when you see it. I just can't tell you, I am so thrilled. And actually, I was telling Sue the other day, I'm ecstatic about this event and about this panel. And the Monterey Bay Lion Dancers, actually, I normally play cymbals with them, but today I'm special. And but thank you for all the times that they have come to help me tell the story here in Pacific Grove. It's just historic. And I also want to thank Joe Asling and Hebert Olson for helping to film. And I see faces in many of the organizations I belong to. So thank you to the CBC who came down from Fremont, and to South Bay Chinese Club that I belong to, who have listened to me for many, many years about this story. And the Monterey Bay Chinese Association, who just at Chinese New Year's nominated me and picked me as one of their 2 outstanding Chinese citizen of Monterey. Thank you. I see quite a few members, and they are from professors and students who teach the Mandarin language at the DLI. So thank you, Hanwei and friends. And then also, I want to thank Congressman Mike Honda, who, when I sent out lots of invitations, his scheduler said that he couldn't come, but is it okay for him to write a congressional letter? So he wrote a letter, and I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs from it. So he wrote, today's event marks the site of what was once the Pacific Grove Chinese Fishing Village. This panel will serve as an educational monument on the importance of early Chinese American history to the community. This marker will allow members of the Pacific Grove community to visit and pay respects to the Chinese American villagers. On behalf of the residents of the 17th Congressional District, of which I am a member, I thank the Heritage Society of Pacific Grove, the City of Pacific Grove, the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, and Jerry Losabado for organizing today's event, and offer my best wishes for their success. And then I also received a letter from the Chinese American Citizen Alliance, and it's, as National President of Chinese American Citizens Alliance, I, along with all members of our alliance across the country, especially your fellow members at the Salinas Lodge, offer congratulations to you and your leadership with the Pacific Grove Chinese Fishing Village Educational Panel Project. In collaboration with the Heritage Society of Pacific Grove, the City of Pacific Grove, and the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, you have all worked tirelessly to see this historic Chinese village marked as an important part of Pacific Grove's and California's rich history. This weekend's activities for the dedication of the panel could not be more timely better. Your dedication to see this come to realization dovetails with the CACA's national objectives to preserve and protect our culture and heritage across the country. I know that brothers Albert Fong, Munson Kwok, and Herb Wong, who is my cousin and the president of the Salinas Lodge, and whose father was a founding member of the Salinas Lodge CACA, they have been fellow collaborators and colleagues in helping me because I am also a member of that lodge. So thank you to those two organizations. And then I want to bring forward a few, actually, if you were a descendant of the village, can you just raise your hand or high up so we can see? So thank you for coming. Thank you. And one lady I just met before this event, and she is also a descendant. So because of these events, we are I feel we're putting together the village, and we're meeting the descendants now. Where were we before? How come we didn't know about each other? But now, because of this panel and the stories we're telling, I think that we're going to be able to piece together a larger picture of the history of this land right back here. And I also want to thank, I saw George Samero and Judy Thompson. Thank you for all the times that you've listened to me. I appreciate it. And I want to bring up, let's start with Russell. He is a descendant of the village, and he'll introduce himself and tell you about his family.
Thanks a lot, Jerry. So I'd like to also thank the Pacific Grove Heritage Society, the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, the government officials for coming here, and also I'd like to really thank Jerry for organizing this and working on this plaque. I'm a fifth-generation descendant. My great-great-grandfather came to Point Alonis in 1868 with my great-grandmother and their entire family. And my great-grandfather as well, they had two homes right over here on that little outlet. And I'm really appreciative of the commemoration of their history. Ralph Ellison, the writer, once wrote, we belong to our families, but we choose our ancestors. And from those ancestors, we make ourselves. I never knew my ancestors, like Jerry said. We're just finding out that we're family together. But we get to choose our ancestors and the values that make us. And so I just want to highlight some of the values that I've learned from my ancestors who lived here and part of their story. The first value I really want to commemorate is their harmonious connection with nature. You could see the land and the sea behind them, how they worked both night and day, how they used every resource available to them, that they even recycled abalone shells to sell. And so I just want to highlight that for my own son, that he would remember today's the coastal cleanup, that we would remember to take care of our environment the way our ancestors did, and to live closely with the environment. The other historical memory I have of my ancestors were that they had this gung-ho community, that they really worked together. There were several fires at Point Alonis, but time and time again they rebuilt their community. They celebrated Chinese customs like the Ring Day and the Ring Game, and they worked together to preserve the community. They filed lawsuits together. They had class action lawsuits together. And I want, again, my son and our descendants to retain that value for community. And lastly, I think they also had a strong vision for justice. And I talked about the lawsuits. The Point Alonis Chinese actually sued and participated in several lawsuits to save their fishing livelihood, to save their land. And even though they failed, they were always fighting to preserve their homes and to preserve their community. And that's why I think it's important for us today to commemorate. This is too an act of justice, to remember and to recall and to always know that our people, that our ancestors were people who loved justice. And you don't think about that when you think about the Chinese community, people who are harmonious with nature, people who are preserving of community, people who pursue justice. But that's what I want to make myself to be. That's what I learned from my ancestors. So I'd like to thank again Jerry and for this dedication.
Let's see, next, before I do, I also wanted to thank the President Jana from the U.S.-China People's Friendship Association, of which I also am a member. She came down from the San Jose area. And then also from Riverside, Judy Lee, and they're from Save Our Chinatown. We met several years ago at the very first National Asian Pacific Islander Historic Preservation Forum in San Francisco. And it was many people coming from all over the world, actually, to talk about the idea of preservation and what it means, and to find out that over 85,000 listings in the National Trust, only, it's just a very tiny percentage, like 4%, and you can count like out of the 85,000, I think there were only like 90-something sites that are Asian. Not just Chinese, but Asian. Only 90-something out of 85,000. In Point Lobos, we have the Whalers Cabin National Trust, and it's one of just a few. So that just tells you how little we know about the Chinese history. But next, someone to help us learn a little bit more about this village, I want to call up Karen Gok, who has been very so supportive of what I've been doing all these years. So thank you, Karen.
I didn't prepare very well, so I'm going to have to read something. So, greetings today to our honored guests and all in attendance today. I would like to give special thanks to Jerry Lo Salvado for inviting us to share our history of Point Alonis. My name is Karen Gok, and my family is from the village of Chermay. They sailed across the Pacific Ocean in the mid-19th century and landed in Monterey. Family members said our Chinese vessel could be seen beached at Point Alonis, right out there past the Monterey Aquarium, a generation after we landed. It was made of teak wood, and it had a cabin for living quarters. Yao Hegok, my great-grandfather, and family are listed in the 1900 census in Pacific Grove Township, which was Point Alonis Village. As a young girl, my family would buy salted flounder from one of the very last Chinese fishermen in Monterey. We would visit Point Lobos as well, because it too was where older generations of my family lived. My dad wanted us to know and to remind us that we were fishermen long ago, and to make sure we kept our family history alive. This is a very special day for all the descendants of Point Alonis, and I thank you very much for having me here and inviting me. Thank you.
So next, I want to introduce Brandon Sabato. He's my son, so I'm very proud to introduce him to just come and say a couple of words.
Good morning, everyone. As Jerry said, I'm her son, Brandon, and I just wanted to give a brief thanks to everyone that came together to put this panel together and kind of express what it really means to me, being a sixth-generation descendant and future generations. So it really means a lot. I think that I can bring my friends and family here and not just kind of point at a site, and we can look at the panel and kind of learn and share our history with passerbys and future generations. So thank you again.
So I have to tell you this story of Brandon. At one time, I think it was in 2009, he ran the Pacific Grove Triathlon here. And when the photographers took pictures, and you know how they sell it to the runners, Brandon had a picture of him coming out of the Pacific Grove Ocean over at Lover's Point in his wetsuit, and it was a great picture of him. And as I looked at it, I felt like it seems like he's, and I had just worked on the archaeological dig right back in here, and I felt like Brandon was another artifact emerging out of the ocean, and he finished that triathlon, and so I felt that it was so symbolic that he was a symbol of strength and hope and courage and perseverance. So I was so happy when he told me he was going to enter the Pacific Grove Triathlon here. I wanted to read to you something that I just received yesterday, an email from Don Kors from the Hopkins Marine Station Library. He's a librarian there, and he's been doing research on the history of Hopkins Marine Station. And he sent me an email which included sentences from the book Anna Ricketts' collection. So actually, he didn't tell me, but I think she must have been his wife. Is that Ed Ricketts' wife? So Ed Ricketts is the scientist who went to the Sea of Cortez with John Steinbeck. And it turns out Don has found a connection between the scientist and my great-grandfather. And now recently, just this week, I found that there is a relationship with my grandfather, my mother's father, who lived right over here on 774 Wave Street, where the Wave Street Studios now is. That's where my grandparents lived. That's where my mother was raised. And that's where we always had our parties. But this is what he wrote, or what she wrote. One of our most dependable shark collectors was Chin Yip, my grandfather, a Chinese fisherman. He wanted to be paid once a year and only the week of the Chinese New Year. We understood that according to their religion, all debts were to be paid before the new year. On that day, our family was invited to their house to partake of their specially prepared foods and drink their liquor, which was pretty potent. Each year at Christmas time, we took toys to their children. That means my mother must have received one of those toys. At that time, all the children were small. There was one boy about 7 or 8 years old who interpreted for his parents since they spoke very little English. I think that little boy is my mother's older brother, and he eventually became in charge of the label making machine at the Monterey Canning Company. So there's this history that we knew nothing about, and I only just found out yesterday about this. So scientists and historians keep looking for information and finding information about my family. I'm going to call some people up to help me unveil the boulder, because these are the team of people who work to make this happen. So Janet, can you come up? Annie? Jeff? Wait, did I get everybody? Oh, and Michael, is Michael here? Michael Miller? Oh, okay. So, do we want to get, okay. Let's pull it up and back. This is the panel. Great. Thank you. Here, I'll take this. And then, wait, stay here, because then I'd like to call up the dignitaries from Pacific Grove and the government. Can you come up so we can take a picture?
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about it.
Oh, good. Is this it, Janet? Is this all the people? I want to be in. I'm gonna. Oh gosh, I have to look.
Take a center spot, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is going to start something. There's going to be a lot happening.
Thank you. Good, good,
Start a new movement.
good. I also want to thank Bill Morning, who sent a Senate Certificate of Recognition to the organizations who helped produce this panel. So thank you, Bill Morning. What I want to do next is a little tea ceremony to remember the ancestors who lived here. And in the past, I just had one set of teacups that my mother gave me when I got married. And over the years, and particularly after the making of the documentary By Light of Lanterns, An Untold History of Monterey's Chinese Fishermen, produced by Cal State University Monterey-based Teledramatic Arts and Technology Department, suddenly, I guess people thought I should have teacups, and so suddenly people were giving me teacups, and it became significant, and I felt that there must be a reason why these teacups kept coming to me, and they're from different generations. And so what I'm going to do is, pour tea. And actually, usually we only pour tea in 3 cups, but it turns out, because I have so many cups, and because I believe that these cups came to me and represent different generations. So it isn't just from, my mother now, it's from generations past. And so I bring them to my events and pour tea in all of them because I feel that I want to recognize all the different generations of family. And then in the past, when Grandpa would take us to the cemetery to to pay respects, then we also had these little cups. These ones are very old. And in those, then he would pour, I believe in China it would be a Chinese liquor, as Ed Rickett's wife mentioned, and we would call it ungape. But in the newer generation, my family used Seagrams. And so I'm just gonna pour a little bit in each one, and then we would light candles, and we would light incense. And so I'm going to do that, and the incense is also to pay respects. And then we would pour this into the ground. Here I'm going to pour it into the bucket of sand, but this is just a ceremony to honor my family and everyone else's family who is a descendant here's family. So this is just a scene that you might see from our history back here many, many years ago, and even not that many years ago, because as we were growing up, we also did this in our family. But many people have told me, and as I've met new ancestors and friends, have been told, you people from Monterey are so old-fashioned. And so I think what happened is, for my family, for some reason, we kept the traditions longer than most people. And even as I was I brought a group of my Chinese club to a temple, and I brought papers to burn, Chinese papers and all, and then one of the ladies said, "We don't do that." And it's like, I thought all the Chinese did it. But because I was raised doing it, I just thought all the Chinese did it. I didn't know that they stopped when they were here. And even people in China stopped because this is a more old-fashioned tradition. So I'm going to ask Russell and Karen and Brandon, can you come up here and help me just pour the tea? And where's Beverly? Beverly and Peggy and Julie, if you could come up and just grab a cup and pour it, just pour it into the sand somewhere.
Oh, like on the ground sand?
No, yeah, not here, but in the bucket.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do we
Just
bow
keep,
3 times?
you can, yeah. And just keep helping me. Yeah, come on. Carol, where's Peggy? And Valerie. Jeff, thank you. Is there anybody else who's a descendant? The lady with the blue strap. And yeah. You want? Oh. Just keep pouring. Yeah. Here, this is Mom's.
Jerry, is this around the location of Joss House?
Let's see, in Michael Croft's model, his model ends right over here at this green area here, and he does have the Joss House there, but then I believe it was moved over here on Wave Street at that empty lot with that fallen tree. It was over there. And one of my aunties tells the story of going to that Joss House in the morning and lighting the incense there. So she actually had the experience of going and doing that. We talk about some of the injustices that happened, and I just wanted to say that for our ancestors and for the descendants, to overcome the level of injustices the villagers endured is a higher form of perseverance. And I believe that we, the descendants now, we are Pacific Grove's beautiful and formerly unknown butterflies, migrating back through the smoke and the fog to the home of our ancestors' village. We are the living legacy of this Chinese village. And I thank you for coming and sharing this experience with us. And I just am so joyous for this. I just can't tell you. I just never thought this could happen, and here it is. I really am happy to share this with you, and I'm happy that you have come and shared it with me too. Thank you. Thank you. If any of you would like to burn one of the incense, I have a lot more incense, and we can just poke it in this stand over here. Otherwise, please go out into the community, because this is also part of my plan, because I want Pacific Grove to know about the story, and if you go out there, go to the restaurants, go buy some gas, go buy a hamburger, and tell them that you came to this event, so that they'll take notice. And I think that they will see that this is an important event. But you have to make it happen. You have to help me make this happen. Thank you.
Matthew, come on up. You're a descendant too. I want to take a picture with everybody in front of the rock. He's hiding there.
Brandon!